I'd been killing time at Murphy's Gun and Tackle every Tuesday morning for the past 6 years, ever since Martha passed. It wasn't about the guns anymore. Hell, I had enough firearms to outfit a small militia. It was about the coffee, the lies about fish that got away, and the company of other old dogs who understood that some scars don't show on the outside. That morning in November 2019, there were 5 of us holding court near the counter. Me, Bill Crawford from the VFW, Tommy Nguyen, who'd lost his left eye in Desert Storm, Marcus Jefferson, who still walked with a limp from Fallujah, and young Pete Morrison. Young being relative since he was pushing 50, but had only done 1 tour in Afghanistan. Murphy himself was behind the counter, polishing a Remington 870, and telling us for the 100th time about the 10-point buck he'd allegedly dropped at 300 yards with iron sights back in '92. We all knew it was bullshit, but that wasn't the point. The point was being there, being together, being understood without having to explain why loud noises still made us jumpy, or why we counted exits in every room we entered. The bell above the door chimed and she walked in. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Short gray hair, military neat. Weathered face that had seen sun in places where sun wasn't friendly. She moved with that particular economy of motion that comes from carrying heavy loads over long distances. Efficient, purposeful, always balanced. Desert boots, worn but maintained. Faded jeans. Navy blue windbreaker that had seen better decades. The conversation died like someone had pulled the plug. "Help you, ma'am?" Murphy asked, and I caught the slight emphasis on ma'am that wasn't quite respectful. "Looking for ammunition. 45 ACP, if you have it." Bill snorted into his coffee. "Lady wants 45. Probably saw it in a movie." I'm not proud of it, but I chuckled along with the others. This was our space, our sanctuary. Women came in sometimes, sure, usually dragged by husbands or boyfriends, looking at pink-gripped revolvers and pretending to be interested. This one was alone, and that somehow made it worse. "Got some nice 22s that might be more your speed," Murphy suggested, already moving toward the display case with the smaller calibers. "Maybe a nice little Ruger?" Pink grip, real popular with the ladies. She didn't move to follow him. I said 45 ACP. Ball ammunition, 230 grain if you have it. 2 boxes. Tommy nudged me. Bet she doesn't even know what ACP stands for. Automatic Colt pistol, she said without looking at him. Her voice was flat, tired. Designed by John Browning in 1904, adopted by the Army in 1911. I'm familiar with the round. That shut Tommy up, but Murphy wasn't done. He came back to the main counter, speaking slower like she was hard of hearing. "Ma'am, 45's got quite a kick. Maybe you should try shooting something smaller first. Work your way up. I've fired a few rounds in my time." She pulled out a worn leather wallet, counted out exact change. 2 boxes, like I said. "You even own a 45? Pete asked, trying to sound helpful but coming off condescending. "Because we can't sell ammunition without..." She reached into her windbreaker and drew the pistol in one smooth motion. Not threatening, just showing. My breath caught. It was a Colt 1911, but not just any 1911. This was an old warhorse, Parkerized finish worn to silver at the edges, custom grip panels that had molded to someone's hand through thousands of draws, the kind of honest wear that only comes from daily carry in harsh conditions. MEU SOC pistol, Marcus said quietly. He knew. Once a Marine, always a Marine, and he recognized Marine Expeditionary Unit hardware when he saw it. That's not civilian issue. She holstered it just as smoothly. I qualified expert with this weapon every year for 2 decades. I think I can handle the recoil.
The atmosphere in the shop had shifted. We were all looking at her differently now, trying to place her, trying to read the story written in the lines of her face and the way she stood. That's when I saw it. Just a glimpse as she reached for the ammunition boxes Murphy had reluctantly produced. A flash of ribbon and metal on her jacket's inside pocket. Combat medical badge with a star. The star meant she'd been under direct enemy fire while treating wounded. My mouth went dry. "Where'd you serve?" I heard myself asking. She glanced at me, and for just a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition? Pain? Both? "Here and there," she said. "Iraq mostly. Afghanistan for a while." "What unit?" Marcus pressed. "Wherever they needed me."
In the way people are when they've seen things they don't want to remember. "Combat medic," Bill repeated, and some of the dismissiveness left his voice. We all knew what combat medics did. They ran toward the screaming when everyone else's instincts said run away. They worked miracles with pressure bandages and quick clot while bullets sparked off the rocks around them. She pocketed her ammunition and turned to leave. That's when the memory hit me like a sledgehammer. Kandahar Province, September 2007, the worst night of my life. Our convoy had been hit by an IED, followed by a complex ambush. 3 vehicles burning, Taliban fighters in elevated positions pouring fire down on us. I was trying to drag Corporal Danny Suarez to cover, but Danny was a big boy, 220 in his underwear, and he'd taken shrapnel to both legs. I could hear him screaming over the gunfire, could see the dark spread of blood on the ground, could feel my own strength failing as I pulled. Then she was there, appeared out of nowhere, like a ghost, medical bag bouncing on her hip, no weapon drawn because her hands were already working on Danny. She didn't say much, just "I got him, Sergeant. Find cover and return fire." I remembered arguing, remembered her snapping at me to shut up and shoot back, remembered the absolute calm in her voice as she worked on Danny while rounds cracked overhead. I remembered her small frame somehow dragging Danny to better cover when I couldn't budge him. I remembered the blood on her hands, on her uniform, the way she didn't flinch when an RPG exploded 20 meters away. I remembered her eyes in the darkness, tired, determined, ancient. I was looking at those same eyes now. "Jesus Christ," I whispered. "You were at FOB Wolverine, September 07. She stopped at the door, hand on the handle, turned back slowly. "The ambush on Route Red," I continued, my voice shaking. "2nd Platoon, Bravo Company. You saved Danny Suarez. You saved—" I had to swallow hard. "You saved him after I couldn't. I've been carrying that guilt for 12 years. And you just walked into Murphy's to buy ammunition." The shop had gone completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on the concrete floor. "Sergeant Mitchell?" she said quietly. "Jack Mitchell?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "How's Suarez doing?" 3 kids. Runs a landscaping business in Houston. Coaches Little League. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands. Found the photo from last summer. Danny with his family at a barbecue. Standing on 2 good legs, because a combat medic had refused to let him bleed out in an Afghan wadi. She looked at the photo for a long moment. When she handed the phone back, her eyes were wet. "I never knew," she said. "We'd stabilize them, load them on the bird, and move to the next FOB. Never knew if they made it home. Never knew if it mattered." "It mattered," I said fiercely. "It mattered to Danny, to his wife, to his kids, who got to have a father. To me, who got to stop seeing his blood on my hands every time I closed my eyes." Bill stood up. "You were the medic at Wolverine?" "Shit, my nephew was there. Tyler Hansen, 1st Platoon. Took a sniper round to the shoulder. October 12th, she said immediately. Entry wound above the clavicle. Missed the subclavian artery by 2 centimeters. He kept asking about his tattoo. Worried the scar would ruin it." Bill's mouth fell open. "That's him. That's exactly. He's a fireman now. Married, 2 daughters. Because of you." Marcus cleared his throat. "I heard about you. They called you Doc Angel. Said you'd appear wherever the fighting was worst. Patch people up under fire. Then disappear to the next hotspot. We all had jobs to do," she said uncomfortably. "No," I said firmly. "No, you don't get to minimize this. Do you have any idea how many of us are walking around because of you? How many families are whole because you ran toward the bullets instead of away? Murphy came around the counter, moving like a man in a daze. Ma'am, I owe you an apology. Hell, I owe you more than that. That ammunition? It's on the house. Anything in the store, actually. Whatever you need. I don't need. Please, he said. And I'd never heard Murphy sound humble before. My son was at Wolverine. Michael Murphy, helicopter crew chief. His bird got shot down in October '07, walked away with a broken collarbone and some cuts. The medic who treated him. Was that you? She nodded slowly. Broken left clavicle, multiple lacerations, mild concussion. He kept trying to go back to the aircraft to get his lucky charm. St. Christopher medal his girlfriend gave him. Murphy's hands were shaking now. He reached under his shirt and pulled out a worn medal on a chain. He gave it to me when he got home. Said the medic went back and got it for him while the bird was still burning. Said anyone crazy enough to do that deserved to make it home, too. Pete had been typing furiously on his phone. Sarah Chen, he said suddenly. Major Sarah Chen. Army Medical Corps. Silver Star, Bronze Star with V device. 2 Purple Hearts. He looked up. They said you were KIA in 2008. Might as well have been, she said quietly. IED outside Kandahar. Woke up in Germany missing some parts. Told I'd never walk again. Took me 3 years to prove them wrong. By then, the war had moved on. They medically retired me, and I came home to nothing. No family, no plan, just a bunch of medals in a box, and memories I couldn't shake. Where are you living? I asked. She shrugged. Around. I manage. Marcus and I exchanged glances. We knew what I manage meant. We'd both been there, the months or years of drifting, trying to find where you fit in a world that had moved on without you. There's a spare room above my garage, I said, before I could think twice about it. Was going to turn it into an office but never got around to it. It's yours if you want it. No charity, I added quickly, seeing her start to protest. I need help around the property. 5 acres is too much for one old soldier. Would be good to have someone who knows which end of a rifle is which. I can't. You can, and you will, Bill interrupted. Jack's too proud to say it, but he's been struggling since his wife died. Could use someone around who understands.
The VFW's been looking for someone to help with our veteran outreach program,
Tommy added.
Lot of young soldiers coming home, needing guidance from someone who's been there. Pays not much, but it's something.
And I could use an extra hand at the shop, Murphy said. Someone who actually knows firearms, not just what they see in movies. Part-time to start, but steady work. She looked around at all of us. These old warriors who dismissed her when she walked in, and were now offering her everything we had. Why? Because that's what we do, I said simply. We take care of our own, even when we're too stupid to recognize them at first. Especially then, Marcus added. She was crying now, silent tears rolling down weathered cheeks. I've been invisible for so long. No one knew who I was, what I'd done. I started to think. Maybe it hadn't mattered. Maybe I'd imagined that it meant something. 23, Pete said suddenly, still looking at his phone. That's how many confirmed saves are in your official record. 23 soldiers who went home because of you. But I bet the real number's higher. 41, she said quietly. I kept my own count. 41 who lived, 17 who didn't. Those 17 weren't your fault, I said firmly. But those 41? That's 41 families who get Christmas together. 41 sets of kids who have parents. 41 reasons you matter. Bill pulled out his phone. We need to fix this. Murphy, you still got that reporter friend at Channel 9? People should know. She shouldn't be buying her own ammunition when she saved half the damn army. No, Sarah said quickly. No reporters. I just want to be useful again. to matter in some small way. Then that's what we'll do, I said. Small ways, quiet ways, the ways that actually count. That was 2 years ago. Sarah lives in the apartment above my garage now, though she's family more than a tenant. She works part-time at Murphy's, teaching concealed carry classes with a patience I couldn't muster. 3 days a week, she volunteers at the VFW, sitting with young veterans who are struggling to adjust, showing them living proof that you can come back from anything. Danny Suarez drove up from Houston last summer when I told him I'd found her. The reunion left us all in tears. He brought his kids, told them this was the woman who made sure they got to exist. His oldest, a teenager trying to act tough, broke down completely when Sarah showed her the medical tag she'd cut off Danny's uniform that night, still in her wallet after all these years. I kept them, she said simply, to remember that it mattered. Word spread, as word does in the veteran community. Soldiers she'd saved found their way to our little town, to Murphy's shop, to my property where we started holding monthly barbecues that turned into impromptu support groups. Young veterans from the recent wars, older ones from conflicts the history books barely mention, all drawn by the quiet strength of a woman who'd spent a decade thinking she was forgotten. But the moment that stays with me happened just last week. We were at Murphy's for our Tuesday morning gathering. Same group, plus Sarah now. A young woman came in, early 20s, nervous as hell. Said she was thinking about enlisting as a combat medic, but wasn't sure she was strong enough. Sarah stood up, all 5'4" of her, and looked that girl in the eye. Strength isn't about size. It's about running toward the screaming when everything in you says run away. It's about keeping your hands steady when the world's exploding around you. It's about carrying more weight than you should be able to because someone's life depends on it. She paused, then added, and sometimes it's about walking into a gun shop full of judgmental old farts and buying your ammunition anyway. We all laughed, even Murphy, who'd never quite gotten over his initial embarrassment. That young woman enlisted. She ships out next month. Sarah gave her the St. Christopher medal Murphy's son had given her all those years ago, the one she'd pulled from a burning helicopter. For luck, she said, and to remember that the smallest acts of courage ripple outward in ways we never see. I think about that a lot now, about ripples, about the 41 soldiers Sarah saved, and the hundreds of lives those soldiers have touched since, about the young medics she's inspiring, who'll save their own 41, or 50, or 100, about the bitter old men in a gun shop who learned to see past their assumptions. Mostly, I think about second chances, how Sarah gave Danny and 40 others a second chance at life, how we gave her a second chance at finding home, how every day is a second chance to do better, to be better, to recognize the heroes walking among us in worn windbreakers and old boots. She still buys her .45 ammunition from Murphy's, though he never lets her pay. Still carries that battered 1911 that saved more lives as a last resort than most weapons save by being fired. Still moves with that particular careful grace of someone who's carried too much for too long, but refuses to put it down. The difference is, now she doesn't carry it alone. That's what I learned that day in Murphy's Gun and Tackle. Heroes don't always announce themselves with fanfare and medals. Sometimes they walk in quietly, ask for what they need, and endure our ignorance with patience we don't deserve. Sometimes they're invisible not because they're hiding, but because we're too blind to see. But when we do see, when that moment of recognition hits like lightning, we have a choice. We can let them walk back out into anonymity, or we can do what soldiers do. Close ranks, form up, and make sure no one gets left behind. Not this time. Not on our watch. Not ever again. Sarah asked me once why I offered her that room so quickly, before I really knew her story. I told her the truth, that I recognized something in her, but it's lighter when you're not carrying it alone. She smiled then, and for the first time since she'd walked into Murphy's, she looked young. Thank you, Jack, for seeing me when I'd forgotten how to be seen. Thank you, I replied, for saving my friend, for saving all of them, for reminding us that courage comes in all packages, and the smallest ones often carry the most. Now, every Tuesday morning at Murphy's, our group has grown. Veterans from 3 counties come for the coffee, the lies, and the company. But mostly, they come for Sarah, who sits quietly in the corner, cleaning that old 1911 and listening to their stories with the patience of someone who's heard worse and survived it. Sometimes a young soldier, fresh from Walter Reed or still processing their discharge papers, will walk in, lost and angry and scared. Sarah always notices them first. She'll catch their eye, give them that small nod that says, "I see you. I've been you. You're safe here." And they are. We all are. In a gun shop that smells of oil and coffee and old war stories, we found something we didn't know we were looking for. A place where heroes don't have to hide, where scars are honored, where the weight gets shared until it's light enough to carry. All because a tired woman walked in one November morning to buy ammunition, and we almost let our assumptions rob us of knowing grace personified. I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad she stayed. I'm glad every time I see her teaching a young veteran to shoot, or showing a nervous recruit how to apply a tourniquet, or just sitting with someone who needs to know they're not alone in carrying the weight. Heroes walk among us every day. They buy groceries, pump gas, stop at gun shops for ammunition. They look like tired middle-aged women with worn boots and old pistols. They look like everyone and no one. The trick is learning to see them. The gift is when they let themselves be seen. The miracle is when we're smart enough to recognize what we're seeing and humble enough to say thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for Danny, for all of them, for showing us that strength has nothing to do with size and everything to do with showing up. For teaching us that the best time to recognize a hero is before they walk back out the door. For reminding us that we're all just trying to find our way home, and sometimes home is a gun shop full of old soldiers who finally learned to see